think the two most important outcomes for me are reducing or eliminating life impact. So whether or not I'm stuttering, just it doesn't have as much of an effect on my life in general. And secondly, spontaneous speaking, like not having to gear up to say something, just being able to speak when I want to speak, how I want to speak, and say what I want to say.
I started stuttering from the first time I started speaking. And I remember that I quickly learned that I shouldn't be stuttering. You know, people would either verbally tell me that or just I could tell the social cues. And I remember being in speech therapy as a very small child and learning that when I went to therapy, I shouldn't be stuttering. You know, no one told me that it was okay to stutter. And I held on to that till I was 45 years old.
There are times when I chase fluency, and it's almost like a drug. Like you get a little taste of it, and you remember what it was like to be fluent, and it feels good. But I would say 90% of the time, fluency and happiness, or fluency and comfortable speech, there's no real relation with them. I can be comfortable speaking whether or not I'm fluent, and it was kind of just this elusive thing that I was always chasing, and my measurement of how well my day went or how well a conversation went was whether or not I stuttered. And I could be feeling terrible after it because I didn't say everything I wanted to say, or I wasn't being my true self, but as long as I was fluent, that was the total measure of success. And now it's just, there's much less of a correlation between how well a conversation or a situation went and whether or not I stuttered.
So what do you value now in communication? What makes it a success?
Saying everything I want to say, for sure. Comfortable, forward-moving speech, not doing the mental gymnastics, thinking about what the other person's thinking, and being able to really kind of just be in the moment of the conversation.
Disfluency counting is, I think, the most damaging thing in all of speech therapy that I've ever encountered, because I found that when I was covert, I could go for 20 minutes and not stutter at all, and then at the very end there would be a stutter or a disfluency, and that disfluency could last for like 30 seconds because it had been building up, and then people might actually remember that. But if I'm just naturally progressing with forward-moving speech with little disfluencies here and there, nobody's going to remember that.
It's a good point. Not all disfluencies are created equal. You know, you can have a great forward-moving disfluency and there's no impact, but you could have a big one and it's a big impact.
Yeah, and just counting disfluencies per minute or per 5 minutes or whatever yardstick you want to use, that you're barking up the wrong tree, because it's life impact of stuttering that's so powerful. That's the power. The disfluencies are nothing. It's, you know, at this point, after avoidance reduction therapy, I mean, I can almost say, who cares how many disfluencies? It's, at least I'm me now. I'm me, you know, yeah.
I would kind of say that disfluencies and stuttering, that disfluencies have nothing to do with stuttering at all. Literally nothing. Because the disfluencies are not the problem, at least for a covert stutterer. I could have gone through an entire day and not had a single disfluency, and I would have still been a stutterer, and it had a huge life impact on me. Right. You are still going to stutter. I definitely stutter, but it doesn't have to control you. You don't have to be afraid all the time. And the point of stuttering therapy, I think, is to let people lead a happy life, not to have fewer disfluencies.
For me, stuttering has very little to do with disfluencies, and it has everything to do with fear. It's fear. You're afraid of being discovered as a stutterer. You're afraid of being viewed as defective or, you know, disabled or something. And yeah, it's all fear. The disfluencies per minute and per second and per hour and all that are almost meaningless, almost meaningless. It's the fear.
Like, it's incredibly freeing to come to that conclusion because it enables you to, again, it enables you to focus on what you're actually doing in the moment and to actually live life to its fullest. And it enables you to overcome fear. And I feel like as a person who stutters, fear is the number one enemy. And it's something where, yeah, okay, there is some reality that there could be some rejection, but the amounts of limitations that we put on ourselves with fear is far, far greater than a look of misunderstanding or a look of confusion. Ultimately, like, it's fear that we have to beat. It's not the actual stuttering itself.
And he was talking about this neighbor that he had, and that the neighbors were like filthy rich, had millions and millions of dollars, and how he used to always envy the neighbors. They had so much money and all this stuff. And his uncle told him, pulled him aside and told him, he says, you know what? Our neighbors are so poor that all they have is money. And it made me just kind of sit, and I was thinking about just my journey with stuttering and communication. And it made me just realize something that I already knew, because I learned it through avoidance reduction therapy, that some people are such poor communicators that all they have is fluency. And it really makes stuttering not so bad, right? It's like, I would rather be an awesome or an effective communicator than actually have the fluency and be somebody that I couldn't sit and listen to for 30 seconds. Fluency is not your friend. Because when you need it, you don't have it. And when you have it, you don't need it.
Yeah, and it feels like you're actually living. I know for me, it felt like that was always, all of my mind was used up just trying to figure out ways to avoid showing stuttering. I didn't even, was thinking like, what am I doing right now? What am I learning? What am I having fun doing? It was all just about avoiding showing stuttering. And yeah, that's been a very welcome change to actually feel like now you can take in the moments when they come and just live without having to always be thinking in the back of your mind, planning ahead, strategizing, thinking ahead to possible situations where you might need to speak. What are you going to say? How are you going to say it? How can I get out of saying it? All of those things.
I just felt totally free to just like stutter and talk away, and it just felt beautiful to just actually have fun talking.
Being able to just talk, right? And to not be in your head so much, and to not, I mean, that I think is one of the biggest changes for me as well, is to actually enjoy talking to people. And I still stutter. I still struggle a lot sometimes, but I enjoy conversing with people and enjoy communicating and enjoy sharing and show my personality and who I am. And that, as an outcome, is so much greater than whether I stuttered 10% of the time or 20% of the time or 10%, 30% of the time. It's that communicating is actually enjoyable now.
If somebody had told me that you should seek treatment not to cure the stuttering, but to eliminate the baggage that comes with it, that would have worked for me. It would have made me come into the door sooner.
You can stutter and still be everything that you like to be. You can still be smart, you can still be cool, you can still be sexy, right? For me, avoidance reduction therapy has taught me that I am not a giant in chains. I use stuttering as an excuse for not going after everything that I wanted. I let that fear rule in my life, and it's nice to feel the freedom to say no, I can do these things. And going into those group settings, into group therapy, and meeting those other people who stutter, like Jay and Tracy and Latif, who are all incredibly successful and very intelligent. And my biggest takeaway is the joy of communication and just being able to express myself freely.
The goal of communicating before I started therapy was the number one priority was to avoid showing my stuttering. The number two priority was to communicate a certain message. And now that's completely changed. I'm not worried at all about stuttering at all. I'm like strictly focused on connecting with who I'm speaking with and on communicating the message that I want to communicate. And yeah, it's a beautiful thing or transformation.
Being able to always say yes to opportunities to speak is the most important outcome. As a person who's done therapy to reduce avoidance. I used to pass up opportunities at work quite a bit, or at least I would hesitate to take on meetings to brief customers, specifically because I was like, well, the problem with this is the main country that we're going to be discussing starts with this letter of the alphabet, and I have a hard time saying that letter of the alphabet, so I don't think I can go to that meeting, even if it is quote-unquote a good opportunity. Now I say yes to everything.
So something recently that was really important to me was meeting my girlfriend's family for the first time. And my goal going into that had nothing to do with fluency, but it was all about, all right, I want to make sure that they see me, that they see who I am, that they see my personality, that I can tell jokes and show them that I can be funny, that I can tell good stories, and that I want them to leave from this first weekend meeting me of getting to know the real me.
I think for me, and it's a recent thing, is that I don't have a thought before I enter a speaking situation. Like, I just enter it and I talk. And that's an amazing feeling. Like, to not have any of the anticipatory anxiety or to worry about how it'll go. It always works out.
I learned to just sort of embrace myself for whom I was created to be, as opposed to trying to pretend to be something that I actually am not. And that was incredibly freeing for me.
Well, big thing is not think twice about what I'm going to do. I can just think if I'm going to do it. That's really the biggest thing. And just not thinking about stuttering. I definitely think about it multiple times a day, even if I never have a moment of disfluency. And that's just the conscious thoughts. There's, I'm sure, far more subconscious thoughts as well. It just kind of goes to how I feel about myself as a person, really. That's really at the core of it, accepting who you are and embracing it, loving it. So I think that's what it would look like at the end of therapy. To me, success looks like fully accepting I'm a person who stutters. For me, it's very easy to go back to hiding it, and that happens from time to time. So one is accepting it, and two is also going a step further and embracing it as well. So to me, that's the most important part of success. It's really not a huge deal for me about the motor part of it or how much I stutter. that's not what causes my struggles internally. It's just the feelings I have and how it affects what choices I make. Do I talk to this person? Do I go to this place? So that's really what success means to me.